Hello, everybody. It's Friday, July 15th, and that means it is time for another episode of our new short video series, which today I am proud to, by popular vote, claim the name of Paleo Fridays, and that is what we'll be calling this show going forward. Again, this is going to be a hopefully every Friday type of episode where we have about 10 minutes to just discuss topics going on within the world of paleoanthropology, no pun intended, as well as current news and questions that might be going on within the community. Today, the topic that we're going to be discussing is Neanderthals. These guys. This is Lafayette-C1, a specific Neanderthal that has quite a bit of history to it if you're interested in looking him up. But today we're not talking about any specific specimens or any specific fossils, although of course I want to give a representation of what we're talking about to know, kind of who the Neanderthals were in relation to us and just give you a visual on who we're talking about. So this is a Neanderthal. Let me give you an example of one other that I have. This is Amud 1. This is the biggest Neanderthal that has thus far been discovered. He was found in Israel. I say he, but I don't know exactly if it was a male. I'm sure he was, though, by the size. Now, Neanderthals have, unfortunately, a very bad reputation surrounding them. And currently, there's a lot of work going on to fix that reputation. Some of the most notable work in popular culture, I would say, would be Dr. Rebecca Sykes' books called Kindred, and I believe Neanderthal Life, Love, and Death. Amazing book. I can't recommend it any more than saying it's a must read for paleoanthropologists and archaeology enthusiasts. You will learn pretty much everything there is to know about these guys currently, and a lot of information that we previously were unsure of or did not know about is pretty deciphered in this book, and it's quite an interesting read. It's a wonderful read. But going back to today's topic, we're going to be discussing myths about Neanderthals. Some of the biggest myths that we have, and discussing why they're not true. So, I think the biggest myth that we're going to talk about today is that Neanderthals were stupid. Okay? I'm sure everybody's heard this. And actually, let me back up a little bit because I do want to clarify something else. You might notice that I'm saying Neanderthal and not Neanderthal. You can say whichever you like, there's nothing wrong with either. But if we're speaking in strictly correct terms, it is a German word. The name of the valley that the specimen was found in was Neander. And Tal in German means valley, so it was Neander Valley. Neanderthal is technically the correct way to pronounce the Neanderthal word, even though it is spelled Neanderthal. Just a quick little note there. Again, you can use either. People who correct you are being a little stingy, if you ask me. But so we have Neanderthals here, and they were not stupid. Okay, let's just put that flat and out there. These creatures, these humans, were pretty much almost at our cognitive level, we're finding out. Of course, they might not have been so spiritually advanced or so advanced in ways that they would think in terms abstractly that we do. Perhaps they couldn't be as well formed as some of the skills that we have, but they still possess those skills. They had clothing, they had fire, they had throwing projectiles, which is another big myth that we'll be busting today because previously, until certain discoveries were made, it was only thought that Neanderthals had thrusting weapons and worked in close encounter hunting, which led to large injuries. And many people believe that in the fossil record, the many injuries we find in Neanderthals are because of that close range hunting, which it could be because we have found many thrusting spears in Neanderthal archaeological sites, while we have found probably one or two throwing spears in sites in Germany, I believe. Now, you'll learn all about this in the book that I mentioned if you decide to read it. All of these myths are pretty much busted in this book, a wonderful collaboration of information. Now, Neanderthals, we are finding out, even had art. We have found cave art that dates far beyond what a Homo sapien would have been able to produce. It's nowhere near as advanced or even remotely resembling something that we would understand, but it is art. And we have found construction work of rock formations deep inside caves that can only be used either for ritual purpose or for homesteading. And we're finding out again that these hominins, these near humans, were drastically more advanced than we had ever previously thought for the last few hundred years. We thought they were these sloping ape creatures that were covered in hair, had no idea what they were doing, and just really were not human. And everyone guffawed at the idea that we could even breed or interbreed with Neanderthals and have viable offspring. Now, of course, with modern DNA testing, we have not only shown that this occurred, but that it occurred often, and that many modern humans outside of Africa, and we're learning now with more recently even inside of Africa due to introgression, have small percentages of Neanderthal DNA, up to about 3 or 4%, which is no small amount considering we share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees and bonobos, differentiated only by 2%. So it's a pretty drastic difference. Now, when we're talking about Neanderthals, we have to understand these were intelligent creatures. They, again, they had clothing, they had art. We know they buried their dead. There's almost no debate at this point whether Neanderthals buried their dead. We have too many sites where there are items in relation, in situ, with skeletons that have to be related to the burial of these individuals. Of course, not every Neanderthal is buried. Not every find that we have of Neanderthal remains are shown great respect, but we do have examples that show it was done. And if it was done once, it could have been done multiple times. And we see this in the fossil and archaeological record. Now, could Neanderthals talk? This is another myth. Did they have language? Physically, we believe they could talk. They had the anatomy to talk. Whether they had the cognitive abilities we see in their DNA, which we have completed their entire genome, we believe they could. And of course, their language probably would not have been as developed as ours or had as many conjunctives and things that we find, especially in English, that are just hard to understand, but it's quite possible they had some sort of communication amongst themselves. And of course, they interbred with modern humans, so there had to have been some sort of communication between modern humans and Neanderthals that worked both ways. What it was, we probably will never know, but we know that it must have occurred. Another big myth about Neanderthals is that they were our ancestors. Now, this is completely untrue, again, for the fact that we have some of their DNA and we interbred with them. Neanderthals did not exist at a time where they were creating by evolving into Homo sapiens. That's not how evolution works. It's not what happened. They both lived at the same time in many of the same places across Europe and the Levant where they met each other. again, where they interbred, creating modern Homo sapiens. Some people even argue Neanderthals are actually a subdivision of Homo sapiens, which would make them Homo sapiens neanderthalensis instead of Homo neanderthalensis, as they are known mostly today. Now, they are not our ancestors. They are more of our cousins, our relatives. We do have a last common ancestor with them and another group of hominins known as the Denisovans, dating to around 800,000 years ago in Europe, known as Homo antecessor. But to say that a Neanderthal is our ancestor is incorrect. They are our cousins, they are our relatives. We lived contemporarily with them. So it's important to realize that difference. Now, I think that was a few good myths that we talked about for this week. Hopefully, you have a little better understanding of these guys. They are awesome. There's so much to learn about Neanderthals. I did a whole almost could be 2.5 hour symposium with the author of that book, Kindred, that I mentioned, as well as Dr. Chris Stringer and Dr. Tom Hyam, who are all experts on Neanderthals. And we pretty much discuss everything you'd want to know. And you can find that on my YouTube channel. And of course, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. They'll be coming out every Friday with new and interesting topics picked by you, the community. So please definitely participate. And I'll see you next week. Or if not in between then, an interview, which please check those out as well. It's called The Story of Us, where we interview people who are actually in the field doing this paleoanthropological work, and we're seeing what they're up to and getting the best news from the field. Check it out, and I'll see you next time.